gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, CaneSport? It is Izubee Charles, and good morning to you all. It is October 5th, 2023, and I would like to thank everyone for joining us on Good Morning CaneSport. Today, I'm joined by Steven Wagner as we break down the news of the day. And Steven, I feel like I haven't said that in years, so welcome back. Welcome myself back to Good Morning CaneSport, which is the two of us. Furman and Matt are still sleeping right now, so we'll give them a little break this morning. We'll let the young guns take over the show. First up this morning in your Miami Hurricanes news. Well, if you missed last night's Lamar Thomas show, which kept Gary up all night, it is never too late to tune in. So head to CaneSport.com where we have the show on our website, or stay right here on the YouTube channel and check out last night's episode. Also, be sure to check out our post-practice feedback from players such as Xavier Restrepo, who weighs in on Tyler Van Dyke's sky-high confidence after 4 games this season, along with insight from offensive lineman Jalen Rivers and that big unit up front that's been moving people all year long. This morning, we also have some interesting thoughts from head coach Mario Cristobal, including his thoughts on the team's leadership levels right now and more heading into Georgia Tech. Steven, I'm going to pass this one to you right now. Miami's 4-0. ACC plays just around the corner, I believe 1-2 days away. Just what would you grade the Hurricanes as a team overall so far this year?
I mean, right now it's pretty hard to give Miami anything less than an A. I mean, whatever expectations there were going into the season of where you expect it to be at this point, I mean, Miami has either met or surpassed them. I mean, before the season began, I predicted that Miami would be 3-1 at this mark, and they'd be getting ready to host a Georgia Tech team that before the season we thought was going to be a joke and an absolute tire fire. They're definitely not great, but I think it's clear. I think we can confidently say that they're better than we expected they would be, and they're at least competent. And if you sleep on these guys, they will sneak up and bite you. I mean, heck, they almost got Louisville in the season opener. But I mean, going into the year, I thought that they were going to lose to Texas A&M, and I thought they were going to be 3-1 at this juncture. Obviously, they were much, much better than Texas A&M, and I think that Miami would beat Texas A&M regardless of whatever venue that it was played at. They go to Philadelphia and they handle business on the road against Temple, and then they beat Bethune-Cookman and Miami of Ohio, who, let's face it, if you do anything less than blow each of those two teams out, you've probably got some problems that you need to be addressing. But otherwise, I feel like Miami has done exactly what you could hope for up to this point. I mean, they're back in the top 25. It seems like the national bandwagon is starting to pick up a little bit. The offense looks dynamically different from where it was a year ago. Shannon Dawson seems to be a tremendous hit as an offensive coordinator hire, and then Lance Guidry has really done works on the defensive end. I think kind of the one thing that still concerns everyone is what Miami's depth is ultimately going to look like. And we saw in the second half of the Texas A&M game, whenever Miami's defense got a little bit depleted, A&M was able to move the ball a lot easier on Miami. I mean, I think that the ceiling for Miami is going to be however long they can stay healthy for, because I think that they're proving right now that when they're healthy and when they're firing on all cylinders, they really are capable of playing with damn near anybody in the country, from a strictly from a roster perspective, from a talent perspective. But if Miami starts to get a little bit depleted, if Miami runs out of some guys, especially up front, on the defensive line and at linebacker, and I think it becomes a lot easier to run the ball against this team. And I think that's something that could potentially give Miami trouble against Clemson or Florida State if they end up not being healthy whenever they have those games. So far, I definitely give Miami an A. And as long as they can stay healthy, I think this team is going to have a lot of success. They have been far, far better than I thought they were going to be heading into the season. I thought it was going to look like a 7-6 team, but now I'm kind of buying into, heck, this might be closer to a 9 or heck, maybe even a 10-win team if they can keep this up.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. I feel like you can't say anything less or lower than an A. Obviously, you look back at last year and you just look across the board. every major spot where you wanted to see improvement, Miami has improved that offensive line. Probably one of the best units on the team up front on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, they were a very good unit last year, but they stayed steady. They're doing exactly what we expected them to do. At linebacker, we have Kiko Malgo and Wesley Hussein doing their thing. Defensive back, the secondary looks vastly improved. I feel like last year, every other play was a 45-yard bomb or a touchdown, and now this year we rarely see that. So a lot of good things just across the board from Miami that I really, really like that I see. So could have to agree with you giving them an A this season. But kind of sticking on to that Georgia Tech theme, a huge, huge, huge recruiting weekend coming up for Miami. I feel like every single top wide receiver in the country is going to be in South Florida this weekend with guys like Nikar, Jeremiah Smith, and a bunch of 2025 and 2026 guys. Just start off with Nikar, a guy that recently just decommitted from Georgia Tech, and seems like Miami's a front runner in that. I know you spoke with some people. Just what were some things you've been hearing about that and that upcoming visit this weekend?
Yeah, Izubee, I think both of us did our individual homework on this one, and we both ended up coming to the same result. Miami is in the driver's seat right now for Nikar. Miami's in the best position for him. I know you reported that the other week, and whenever I had a chance to get him on the phone, he reaffirmed that. He said, yeah, Miami's still in the driver's seat. What I told Izubee was not a fluke. That wasn't a mistake. That's definitely how I feel, and that's how I'm continuing to feel. Guy who decommitted from Georgia, a 4-star wide receiver who, quite frankly, we didn't even really know Miami had a shot with before he decommitted from Georgia. And then all of a sudden, it seems like everyone starts hearing the name Miami thrown around. And we kind of wonder, hey, where the heck is this coming from? And was able to check around a little bit, and Miami absolutely is well in this mix. This is going to be his first trip down. His first trip down to Miami. He's both going to go to Hard Rock, and he's actually going to go to Coral Gables itself. He is going to take a visit on the campus. He's going to get the full unofficial visitor experience. They're going to give him, they're going to show him everything they normally would. They're going to pull out the VIP treatment for him, and they're hoping that they're going to open a can of whoop-ass on Georgia Tech, because as we've seen, winning solves a lot of problems, especially in recruiting. And one of the things that really, I think, attracted Nye to Miami is how well Miami's offense has looked, or is how well Miami's offense has played so far this year, and how much the team is winning at the moment. And as long as Miami keeps winning, and as long as this offense keeps clicking the way that it is, I think that there is a really, really good chance that Nikar ends up as a Hurricane. Now, I know right now the RPM is trending, or Miami is trending up in the RPM for Nikar right now. I would be kind of surprised if we saw a commitment this weekend based on some people that I talked to. But I do think that it's definitely possible that Miami does end up getting this guy in the class. I think I'm fairly confident that that ends up happening at some point.
Yeah, after kind of the recent developments with, the day after he decommitted from Georgia, Miami sends a guy up there, and then he's getting down to Miami less than, 2 weeks later from that. I feel like all signs are pointing that kind of Miami is in the lead, and Nikar has, said it multiple times, hey, Miami is that team to beat. So I feel like with Coach Kevin Beard and what he's doing out here and the momentum he kind of has on the trail right now, landing Chance Robinson, landing a JoJo Trader, Jeremiah Smith in his sights, another guy that's going to be visiting this weekend. I feel like all signs are pointing, hey, we're doing our thing. The offense is showing that we can, at a high level, produce wide receivers, have our wide receivers be productive. Like you hinted at, that's something that Nikar is really, really attracted to, and that's something that he says he's really, really attracted to. It's kind of hard to, not be attracted to seeing a team airing out the ball, multiple receivers being very, very productive in the system. So I really, really do like where, Miami stands with Nikar right now, and I would kind of go up on a limb and say I think he does end up in Miami as well, Stephen. So kind of going back to Jeremiah Smith, we've been, talking about him visiting you. I feel like you're the first person to report he'd be at the Georgia Tech game a couple of weeks back when we went out to their game. Just now that it's coming up, just how important is it to get Jeremiah Smith on campus for this game, and how big of an impact do you think this could potentially have on the way he views Miami and his, recruitment overall?
Man, this is the moment that Miami has been waiting for really since the summer. We heard over the summer that one official visit or one really, really stellar unofficial or one trip wasn't going to be the difference in Jeremiah flipping away from Ohio State and ultimately landing in Coral Gables. This is a marathon. It is not a sprint by any means, which means that, like, for better or for worse, like it or not, Miami's in this thing for the long haul. And they know that instead of having, one really splash visit where Miami makes tremendous progress and all of a sudden Jeremiah loves Miami and he's ready to flip and commit to the Canes right now, Miami knows that this is going to have to be basically have to be a recruitment of incremental small steps, one small step forward, another small step forward. And so far, Miami has taken a few small steps forward. I mean, they're still recruiting the heck out of him. I think that they're doing a very good job recruiting him. And so far, it's really helped a lot that Miami is winning at the moment. I think that's probably the biggest difference maker is this offense looks a lot better. Miami is winning a lot more. There's a lot more confidence around the program. There's a lot more confidence in the building. And there's a heck of a lot more confidence at the receiver position. I'm actually going to go the opposite way of, what a lot of people would think. A lot of people would think, this is absolutely huge for Miami. And, this visit is going to play, such a major factor in his recruitment at the end of the day. And whenever he makes his final decision, whenever he signs, if he does pick Miami, I'm actually going to go in the opposite direction. I'm going to say I don't think this is going to have a tremendous impact in the way that he views Miami. Do I think that it's very important that Miami gets him to Hard Rock for a game? Absolutely. I think that Miami's chances of landing his commitment probably go way, way down if he ends up not visiting Miami this weekend. So that definitely is very important. But in the larger scheme of things, I actually don't think this visit is going to be that important for the reasons that I just laid out. There's not going to, if Jeremiah does flip to Miami from Ohio State, it's not going to be because of one moment or, one instance or one game that he had or one, steak dinner that Mario Cristobal took him to on an official visit or anything like that. It's going to be months and months and months of small steps, and then hoping that he arrives at that conclusion on his own, because Miami's been hammering away at this thing for a really, really long time. And quite frankly, I think that they've done a pretty good job at closing the gap. But, earlier in the year, I think after he committed to Ohio State, it definitely felt like Ohio State had separated from the rest of the pack. And, it seems like every other school that's still after him, mainly Miami, Florida State, and Florida, have all just kind of been trying to chip away, and eventually work themselves back into that race.
Yeah, no, I was going to say slow and steady wins the race. And, man, Miami's in this for a long run. I feel like getting them back, on campus is huge. But like you mentioned, just little victories here and there. This is a war. You have to win these small battles to kind of come out and on top. So, nevertheless, a huge weekend for Miami with a ton of recruits, wide receivers, especially with those two guys we just mentioned, and 2025 guys like Nashawn Montgomery and Dallas Wilson, who's committed to Oregon, 2026 guys, Jabari Brady and Calvin Russell. So a big weekend for Miami. And I feel like if they really, really air the ball this weekend, they'll have a lot of, more guys tuned in, and especially the guys there. So make sure to check out all the coverage that we will have, coming up, leading up to the game with, more previews from these guys and their thoughts heading into the matchup. So heading back to other stuff on the site, we do have a closer look at some of Miami's biggest rises from this summer in the on-through rankings. A lot of guys made big jumps, throughout the year and kind of continued to rise. So make sure to check out that analysis that we have on site. And another recruit that will be in the section on Saturday. Sorry to keep talking about this Georgia Tech game, but there's just so many guys that are going to be there, so many important guys. Zaquan Patterson, he's a guy that just visited Auburn, was out there for their game against Georgia. I believe they lost that game, but it's weird. A lot of recruits that were at that game are giving feedback saying, hey, this kind of helped Auburn or something like that or things like that, which is kind of, confusing to me. But Zaquan has kind of been one of those guys Miami was after for a very, very long time and beat out Florida State and Michigan for his commitment. He's still going to be taking visits. I believe Michigan has a visit with him lined up sometime down the road. He just took that Auburn visit. Steven, you spoke with Zaquan, coming off that weekend visit. Just where do you think things are at? What is he really saying coming off that visit from Auburn?
Yeah, I think that Miami really doesn't have a ton of reason to be nervous about Zaquan Patterson. He disclosed everything that he did with Miami's coaches. The staff was very well aware that he was going to be taking this trip to Auburn, and he's communicated every update about another school in his recruitment to the Miami coaching staff. So if I'm Miami, I don't have a crazy amount of concern here. Would I prefer my recruits to have their recruitment completely shut down and say, I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not even going to entertain the thought of another school. I'm 100% Miami. Yeah, who wouldn't? Nick Saban would love that at Alabama. Kirby Smart would love that at Georgia. Lincoln Riley would love that at USC. Ryan Day would love that at Oklahoma. And we can go on and on and on. But, fact of the matter is, in today's age of recruiting, that's just kind of not the way things happen. But Miami has been secure enough in their belief and in their opinion of where things sit with Zaquan, that they really don't feel like there's a tremendous reason to fret about him. They are not overly concerned, and Zaquan's not overly concerned either. It seems like Auburn was pretty convinced that this visit went really well and that Auburn is definitely still in the mix. And while, yeah, I do think that Auburn is still in the race, I think that the gap between Miami and the other schools is very comfortable for Miami fans. And he reaffirmed his commitment too. And if you feel like you need proof that Miami's in the best shape of anyone else and that Miami is in the lead, look at it this way. Just a week after going to see Auburn take on Georgia and probably what's going to be the most electric atmosphere at Auburn this season, at least until they play Alabama later this fall. A week after that, he's taking his second game day visit of the year to Miami. He gets done with one visit. The first thing he does, he goes right back to Miami. And he goes there with JoJo Trader, with Jeremiah Smith, with Chance Robinson, with a lot of these high-profile blue-chip Miami commits who Zaquan's really close to and grew up with. So all in all, I'm not worried about Zaquan. I'm not concerned if I'm a Miami fan. I'm not anxious about this. If I'm a Miami fan, I'm feeling pretty secure about where things sit. I don't have a ton of insecurity.
Yeah, this is one, I'm not sweating too much either because, like you mentioned, what's awesome to hear from him is he's communicating with Miami saying, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And even before he pledged to Miami, he always said, wherever I end up committing to, I'm still going to take visits. I'm still going to, enjoy my recruiting process. So awesome to hear that Zaquan is still firmly committed to the Hurricanes and, things are still looking very, very good with that situation. Headed to staying on the defensive side of the ball, Miami recently offered 2024 defensive tackle Nazir Smith out of Grayson, Georgia, who's expected to visit very, very soon. So make sure to check that out on the site as well this morning. Miami's still looking for those guys in the trenches. I know they missed out, with a few guys, the David Stones and the Dylan Stewarts and the Con Sims of the world. But, Mario Cristobal and those guys are still, chasing after, big time guys in the trenches. So make sure to check out that update when you can this morning. And to wrap it up, we have our weekly tracking commits story on the site with stats and highlights from some of Miami's commits in the 2024 class. And to end off the show, Steven, I wanted to ask you kind of midway through the high school season, which Miami recruit has impressed you the most? It can be, a guy you've seen in person or a guy that we haven't been able to see in person. Just which guy has really been popping for you and why?
Man, it's got to be Chance Robinson, just because I think he has hit every developmental milestone that I really wanted to see from him going into this year. Is he getting better separation? Yeah. Has his short burst increased? Yeah. Has he gotten stronger? Yeah. Is he getting better at catching the ball away from his frame? Yeah. Is he still using his physicality to kind of, muscle up smaller defensive backs and be able to win these jump balls, but also be able to be a little bit of a burner and be able to get some separation whenever he catches the ball short in space? Oh, yeah, he's got that too. Everything that I wanted to see from Chance, I've seen. He has gotten better at really every major category that I feel like I really wanted to see from him this year. And I felt like the proof is in the pudding, really in St. Thomas's first game against St. John Bosco from out in California. Now, St. Thomas ultimately lost that game, but I thought Chance was absolutely tremendous. I think he ran his routes very, very well whenever he was targeted He caught it as long as the ball was catchable. There were a handful of misses that I felt weren't quite his fault, or maybe a handful of instances in which the quarterback just didn't see him or threw the ball the opposite way. But as far as Chance goes, I think that there's not a ton that I'm still really waiting to see. What I wanted to see most from him was development. Prove to me that you're trending in the right direction. And that's exactly what he's done. We already knew he was a freak athlete. He's building on that athleticism. And he's the kind of guy where, especially whenever you kind of view how he's trended over these last few years, he has gotten noticeably better every single year. And it's really hard not to say that that's not going to project well at the college level. I think that he's going to continue to rise. I think he's going to continue to do really, really well as the 2024 recruiting class gets deeper and deeper into the fall. And, we get more rankings updates, and then ultimately we get down to signing day. I think that there's not really any reason that you're going to see anything that Miami fans need to be anything less than really, really excited about him. I think that he's a guy, he kind of, to me, looks like he could have a chance to be, maybe a little bit of like a better version of Jacoby George almost. That's definitely not a diss to Jacoby, because he has played very, very, very well this season. But I'm saying I think that's what Chance's ceiling might be, is kind of on that level. I think Chance could be really, really, really good for Miami, and I think that everything that he's shown us so far this season, I think, is kind of proof of that.
Yeah, I really do like that pick. I feel like sometimes Chance might get lost in the mix with, wide receiver talk with Miami's always talking about, the Jeremiah Smiths and the Nye Carrs of the world and the JoJo Traders and all these big time, recruits that to go after, with Chance kind of being that first wide receiver to commit and to say, hey, I want to stay home. I want to play for Miami. I feel like he kind of gets lost in the mix, but I love that choice from you. But I'm going to have to go a little bit different, stay on the offense side of the ball. I'm going to go with Elijah Lofton, the tight end out of Bishop Gorman. I feel like every single week I'm tracking his stats and looking up his highlights. This kid is doing something at tight end or running back, or just doing something that's kind of wow. If he's not, catching 3 touchdown passes in the game, he's running for 3 and things like that. I feel like he's just going to bring a ton of versatility to that Miami offense next year when he arrives, and just a guy you can plug and play, anywhere on that offense, H-back, maybe fullback, maybe tight end, maybe line him up in the slot, maybe out wide. Just a lot of different variety from him, is and just showing his versatility is something I really, really do like. But let's keep this discussion going. If on the message boards or, in the comments below, just who's been that one 2024 commit that's impressed you guys at home the most, leave that in the comments, or we'll start a poll on the message board to kind of get everybody's feedback and keep this conversation going. But for today's show, that's all we have on Good Morning CaneSport. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw today, leave a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you're not already, subscribe to CaneSport.com for all your Miami Hurricanes news. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining us.